In 1929, the stock market crashed and the U.S. was plunged headfirst into the Great Depression. Efforts were made to help recover from the Depression, specifically the New Deal instituted by U.S. President Franklin Delano Roosevelt. Of the three R's housed within this deal, recovery, relief, and reform, recovery was the aspect that was tasked primarily with restoring the country back to its normal economic state. This task proved exceptionally difficult, as the economy remained flawed all the way up until the war, when the recovery effort finally achieved its goal of restoring the economy. During the Great Depression, nearly everyone who lived in the country at the time was affected, not just those who were involved in the stock trade when the economy first crashed. From businessmen on Wall Street to the farmers who worked and lived in the Dust Bowl, the long arm of the Depression reached across the nation. Organizations like the Federal Housing Agency and the Homeowners Loan Corporation, as well as acts like the Fraser-Lem Bankruptcy Act, were focused on easing the strain on low-income families in the Depression-era America by allowing them to continue to own property with less constraints upon rent and mortgage. Additionally, the Resettlement Administration gave farmers the assistance they needed to get back on their feet after the detrimental effects of the Depression, and this, coupled with the other socially based acts and administrations, changed the social environment of the country for decades after the Depression finally ended. The economic connotations of the Recovery Division of FDR's New Deal were composed primarily of the introduction of governmental interference in the economy of the nation. Acts like FDR's bank holiday, while they did offer temporary relief, ultimately negatively impact the long-term standing of the U.S. economy. However, not all of the actions taken regarding the economy of the nation were bad. Institutions such as the Public Works Administration and the Works Progress Administration, created simply for the sake of supplying jobs to unemployed Americans, were tasked with constructing roads and highways that are still largely in use today. Additionally, the political landscape of the U.S. was impacted by the New Deal as well, forcing politicians to take more responsibility for the welfare of the United States citizens than they ever had before. The Senate, House, and the President himself were indirectly given almost complete control over the economic and social standings of the U.S. The acts and agencies discussed and deliberated over had more importance than ever before, and the nation was counting on their politicians to repair the country. The U.S.'s politicians had to keep conscious of their impact on the country at this time, something that they had never had to consider with the intensity that was required during the New Deal's first 100 days. While the efforts made by Franklin Delano Roosevelt and the Democrats in the recovery movement of the New Deal had many vocal critics, its policies undoubtedly raised a stunted and squandered American economy from the worst economic downfall in modern history. Many critics claim that FDR's reforms granted unnecessary and overwhelming power in the hands of the federal government that curbed the liberty of the citizens. These people would be well advised to remember that the federal government had long developed an authoritarian strain of influence on the people. It relied upon force and power to conquer the native people of land, enslave blacks, subjugate the discontent poor, and stifle any labor unions. This country repeatedly used military intervention to force policies and governments onto Latin America and Pacific lands, which favored not the interest of these people, but that of the wealthy Americans. What these critics dislike is rather government intervention in the economy on behalf of the poor and the working class. Throughout U.S. history, the antitrust laws intended to restrict the non-competitive monopolies of the young countries were instead used on the strikers and labor unions who sought only basic conditions of decency in life. FDR's were on the behalf of the majority of Americans, as evidenced by the wealth equality still unmatched in American history, and the dense collection of social programs developed to help the people. These government programs, like Social Security, which consistently ranks as the most popular government program, and divisions like the FDIC, which maintains the stability and confidence of an ever-changing market. The recovery efforts help the unemployed, the bankrupt, and the disenfranchised, creating not only a precedent for basic human decency, but non-discriminatory camaraderie among countrymen. All of the New Deal's R's, recovery specifically, functioned as a major benefit to the American people, not only by direct help for contemporary citizens, but through future expectations that the government work to alleviate the suffering of future citizens.